Hi, I'm Erin from Cottage Designs by Erin, and I recently cleaned off my design wall and hung up a few of my miniature quilts, and that's what we're going to be talking about in this particular video. I became obsessed with miniature quilts in the early 90s, just as most of the United States did. People were collecting miniature quilts, making miniature quilts, entering them in contests, and subscribing to this particular publication, Miniature Quilts Magazine. I made my first miniature quilt in the late 90s, and it was this particular design, which is a grandmother's fan. I won a blue ribbon on this at a local county fair, and I was very proud of it because this is my first attempt at making a miniature. There are a lot of myths involved in making miniatures. The first off is that they take less time than a full-size bed quilt or a full-size lap quilt. And that's not necessarily true. It depends on how much time, effort, energy you put into your quilts. They are very time consuming. This one is one I just recently finished, and I had more than 7 hours invested in this particular quilt. So patterns, let's talk about patterns. Miniature Quilts Magazine was one of my favorite all-time publications, and when they went out of business, I still kept on my magazines, which I'm happy about because now they're difficult to come by. You can't purchase back issues on eBay, but they're very expensive, to the tune of $15 to $22 each. This particular fan quilt came from issue number 34 from 1998. And what I liked about this magazine was it came to your house every month for a very minimal fee. And they had templates in here. The big and easy templates were meant for beginners because they do not require as much precision or accuracy as, say, the small templates. I also made this quilt, but I don't have it on the wall. So sky's the limit when it came to these little quilts. You could make a traditional piece quilt, you could make a paper piece quilt, all kinds of different techniques were used, which is one of the things I enjoyed about it. When I used a magazine, if I used the templates, I traced around the templates, and then on the back, I glued with rubber cement a manila envelope, and I put all my templates to this issue inside here so that I wouldn't lose them. And then I labeled this. It says Templates Miniature Quilts issue number 34, so that if I ever wanted to make it again, I would knew, in case this fell off, what was in here and what it went to. I also organized my miniature quilt magazines. I bought just one of these standard Walmart magazine organizers, and it looks like I have issues number 5 through 55 in this particular holder. And I do revisit it every now and then. I haven't made one out of a magazine in a long time. Okay, this quilt on the wall is my most recent, and that took me more than 7 hours to make. A friend of mine gave me the little blocks, and then I sashed them, put them together, and then I appliqued Sunbonnet Sue and Sunbonnet Bill on top because I thought that was darling. This particular quilt is from a 1993 issue of Country Woman. It was either the Christmas or winter issue that year, and it's a poinsettia quilt. This is currently for sale in my store at Cottage Designs by Erin on Etsy. I also have down here a fall scrappy miniature, and this is also listed in my online store for sale. Now, why? Why would you even want to trouble yourself with these things? Well, for one thing, they're fun, they're challenging, they're a great way to use up scraps, and they add so much love and attention to your home. They're nice little candle mats. They look cute hanging off of a shelf, or they're nice doily for a table. There's all kinds of things you can use them for. All right, so now I want to talk about what are some of my favorite miniature quilt publications. I taught a class 20 years ago based on this book, which is Little Quilts All Through the House by Alice Berg. Alice Berg is a miniature quilt expert, and you can find her books on abebooks.com used, on Amazon, on eBay, all of those places. I would get a used copy because they're much cheaper. And she did such a beautiful job of designing the books and showing you display methods, showing you, how they could be used in a room. This is just such a beautiful feast for the eyes. Even though the 90s are long gone and we're not decorating in that style anymore, it's still nice to make quilts and bring them out specifically at the holidays. She made other books. This one's called Little Quilts, and it's patriotic little quilts. And there's cute little quilts and pillows in this magazine, or I'm sorry, in this publication. Now, what's the difference between a miniature quilt and a little quilt? A miniature quilt is typically under 24 inches long. Okay, and a small quilt or little quilt can be these size. This is a miniature, this is a miniature, this is a small, this is a small or little. Okay. She also published Celebrate with Little Quilts. So as you can see, I'm a huge Alice, try that again, Alice Berg. Um, I'm a groupie, I guess you'd say. I have all her books. I have several of her patterns that you can buy that were shipped to the house that I also enjoy. Now, things you need to know when making a miniature quilt. You have to be 100% accurate or they will not turn out. They need to be made out of cotton. You do not want a high loft batting when using miniature quilts because you want them to be nice and flat. I typically use warm and natural batting. It's easy to machine quilt or hand quilt, either one. Your next option would be a cotton batting or a wool batting. I would not go for a polyester batting just because they're too puffy, too voluminous. Other ideas and tips you need to know is it's nice to have as many scraps as possible in your quilt because that gives the eye more range to look at. And you also want to pre-wash all of your fabrics. I made a really adorable little patriotic quilt one year, and I didn't wash my red fabric, and then when I washed the whole thing, it was ruined because the red color ran. So my tip, I do not buy color catchers because they're expensive. Hey, you don't have to get fancy on it. Wash your fabric in whatever laundry detergent you use. I like All Free or Tide, and throw in 1 cup of white distilled vinegar, and that will keep your red fabric from running. Other ideas, other things you need to know. You're better off in a miniature quilt using a print rather than using a solid, because when you're up close to it, the eye is going to be drawn in by the little prints rather than solid. So this is solid, it looks pretty boring, but when you look at the leaves on this is printed and it has much more eye appeal. So what do we need to know? Cotton batting, cotton fabric, pre-wash your fabrics. Make sure that you cut and sew to accuracy. You're usually going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance unless the pattern calls otherwise. Okay, so I know this is kind of a quick video, but I just love miniature quilts, and if I don't put a cap on this, I can go on and on about them. I hope you enjoyed my video. Please like this, leave me some comments below, tell me anything you would like to see a video on, and last but not least, subscribe to my channel because I'll have more videos for you real soon.